If you have been here for a bit, chances are you have seen one of my microneedling videos. I have made probably a dozen, if not more, microneedling videos because microneedling is something I'm quite passionate about. Now, in some of the microneedling videos I have shared, I use a Derma roller. In some of them I use a stamp, and in the remaining videos I use an electric microneedling device. When I first started microneedling about 16 years ago, I did start with a Derma roller because back then, 16 years ago, this was all that was available for microneedling. However, in the past, I would say maybe 3 years or so, I have mostly used an electric microneedling device for my microneedling sessions. Now, under some of my microneedling videos, quite a few of you, especially lately, have asked, can we get these same results or even better results from using a Derma roller versus an electric microneedling device? And are these devices, in fact, just a scam? Apparently, there are some experts here on YouTube who claim that, first of all, we can get superior results using a Derma roller versus an electric microneedling device, and that these devices are basically just being pushed by the cosmetic and spa industry because ultimately it is more profitable to them. So let's explore that. First of all, I just air quoted experts, which leads me to my usual disclaimer. Please know that I am not a microneedling expert. I am just sharing with you what I have learned over the past 16 years of doing my own microneedling sessions at home. But as always, if you are thinking of microneedling at home, please do your own research. Now let's start by briefly taking a look at whether these kind of devices are indeed a scam and something that is just being pushed by the cosmetic and spa industry because ultimately it is more profitable to them. Honestly, I think that's a bit far-fetched. While, spoiler alert, I do believe that if used correctly, we can get these same great results using a Derma roller as we can using an electric microneedling device. I don't think these things are a scam. I think, like so many things, somebody a few years ago looked at one of these, which had been around for quite a while, and thought to himself, this thing has a lot of benefits, but also quite a few drawbacks. How can I improve this? And voila, an electric microneedling device was born. So I don't think these things are a scam. But again, I do believe that if used correctly, we can get these same great results using a Derma roller as we can using an electric microneedling device. But I also believe that each of these has pros and cons. So let's look at the Derma roller first. As I mentioned earlier, when I first started microneedling, I did start with a Derma roller. Back then, I came across Dr. Des Fernandez, who is the pioneer of microneedling or derma rolling. And I was so intrigued with the information Dr. Fernandez shared about microneedling that I started microneedling myself. Now, Dr. Fernandez back then started microneedling or derma rolling with a Derma roller, and to my knowledge, to this day, he prefers using a Derma roller over an electric microneedling device. I'm not sure what his reasonings are for that, but I'm going to give you my pros on a Derma roller. So first of all, a Derma roller is definitely cheaper than an electric microneedling device. Though, you really want to make sure to purchase a good Derma roller, not some cheapie on Amazon for $5 or $10. You want to make sure that first of all your Derma roller has real needles and that they are made out of either stainless steel or titanium. I will link a few sites down below that sell real Derma rollers. But I purchased this one myself off of Gin Amber. This particular Derma roller cost $45. Now there are some cheaper Derma rollers on Gin Amber's site, which are also great quality. But on the one I purchased, you can actually replace the head or roller part, and the replacement is $30. So that's an initial investment of $45, And then I always say we don't want to use one of these more than 10, max 15 times. So after 10 or 15 times max, I then spend another $30 on a replacement roller. So not too bad. Versus, for example, the Dr. Pen M8S is $299. And then I always say we want to use a fresh cartridge for every single session, and cartridges are around $5 each. So as far as price, a Derma roller definitely wins. Also, if used correctly, I think that a Derma roller is quite self-explanatory and easier to use than an electric microneedling device. Here we have to figure out what depth to dial in, what speed to put it on, what cartridge to use, versus a Derma roller, again, if used correctly, is quite easy to use. I actually have a video in which I show how I feel a Derma roller is used correctly, and of course I will link that video down below. And then lastly, as far as pros of a Derma roller is always ready to go. It doesn't have to be charged. I cannot tell you how many times I was ready to do a microneedling session and then realized I did not charge my pen. So a Derma roller doesn't have to be charged. It is always ready to go. That is, and that gets us into the cons of a Derma roller, that is, if it was sterilized really well after the last use. Since we don't throw this out every single time, like with a Dr. Pen, we use a fresh cartridge with every use. Since we don't throw this out after every use, we have to really make sure to sterilize it really, really well. Also, with a Derma roller, we are quite limited as far as depth of needle penetration. So I have a 0.25 millimeter Derma roller right here, which is what I use for cosmetic microneedling. Now, would I want to medical microneedle with a Derma roller? I would need a Derma roller that has a needle length of at least 0.5 millimeters or longer. And if you have seen any of my medical microneedling videos, you may have noticed that I personally change the depth of penetration depending on what area I work on. So for example, right here where I'm a bit sunken in, I like to go 1 millimeter deep. On my forehead, which is just skin and bone, I like to go 0.5 millimeters deep. Under my eyes, where the skin is quite thin, I like to go 0.25 millimeters. So personally, I would need 3 different Derma rollers for a medical microneedling session versus on an electric microneedling device, I can change the depth of needle penetration depending on what area I want to work on. So these are, in my opinion, the pros and cons of a Derma roller. But again, I truly believe that if used correctly, we can get the same great results using a Derma roller as we can using an electric microneedling device. Now, as far as superior results, as I mentioned earlier, some experts do believe that we can get superior results using a Derma roller versus an electric microneedling device. To me personally, that doesn't make much sense because what we are trying to do when we medical microneedle is to create a controlled injury by poking tiny little holes into the dermis. And these tiny little holes can be created with either a Derma roller or an electric microneedling device if used correctly. I really want to stress that. But let's talk about the pros and cons of an electric microneedling device. Some of them we already covered. It is initially more expensive than a Derma roller. And because we want to use a fresh cartridge with every use, upkeep is also more expensive. It has to be charged. Or, at the very least, if you forgot to charge your electric microneedling device, you have to sit close to an outlet to use it plugged in. Versus again, a Derma roller is ready to go. That is, if it has been sterilized. And then lastly, as far as cons, in my opinion, an electric microneedling device can be a bit overwhelming to figure out. We have to figure out depths of penetration, what speed to put it on, what cartridge to use. because as I talked about in a previous microneedling video, we want to use a different cartridge for cosmetic needling than we do for medical microneedling. And while it can be a bit confusing to figure out which cartridge to use for what, and hopefully the video I just mentioned was helpful with that, but while it can be a bit confusing, being able to choose different cartridges, in my opinion, is also a pro. Because unlike with a derma roller, where we are stuck with the amount of needles our derma roller has, being able to choose different cartridges with a varying amount of needles or pins per cartridge can ultimately lead to a better outcome. Also, of course, unlike again with a derma roller, where we are stuck with the needle length our derma roller has, with an electric microneedling device, we can dial in whichever depth of penetration we want to dial in. So therefore, an electric microneedling device can be used for nanoneedling if the device actually offers nanoneedling cartridges. It can be used for cosmetic needling and also for medical microneedling. And even in a medical microneedling session, I can change the depth of penetration depending on what area I want to work on. Another pro, and this might just be me, let me know in the comments if you have had the same experience. But for me personally, using an electric microneedling device when medical microneedling is slightly less painful than using a derma roller. And then lastly, of course, because we use a fresh cartridge every time, we first of all don't have to worry about sterilizing our device, as we of course have to with a derma roller. Also, because we use a fresh cartridge every single time, we don't have to worry about our needles going blunt, as we again have to with a derma roller. Using a fresh cartridge every single time, we are guaranteed that our needles are nice and sterile and they are nice and sharp. So these are, in my opinion, the pros and cons of a derma roller and an electric microneedling device. And again, while I personally don't believe that we can get superior results using a derma roller, I do truly believe that if used correctly, we can get the same great results using a derma roller as we can using an electric microneedling device. That being said, I don't think these are a scam. And I think some of the reasons spas prefer using electric microneedling devices over derma rollers are probably some of the same reasons I just mentioned. Hygiene, flexibility as far as depth of needle penetration, and also for a spa, purchasing one of these and then having replacement cartridges makes a lot more sense than having to store a derma roller for every single one of their patients or clients. So I hope this video was helpful. I would love to know, do you microneedle? And if so, what do you use? A derma roller or an electric microneedling device? Let us know down below. Any questions or comments, of course, please leave them down below. Always love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, bye.